The stars outside the ship glowed like 1,000 cold eyes. Captain Elias Rayner stood at the front of the bridge of the Resolute, a medium-class human salvage ship. They had been drifting near Epsilon Eridani for 3 days now, responding to a strange signal that didn't match any known language or ship system. "Still nothing from the beacon?" Elias asked, glancing toward his communications officer, Lyra. Lyra shook her head. "No response. But the signal is definitely coming from that wreck ahead." On the screen floated a massive dark shape, a ship, unlike any they had seen. It looked almost alive. Its surface was smooth, black, and covered in twisting patterns like veins or roots. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Any life signs?" "One," said Kalen, their scanner tech. "Very faint, deep inside." "Suit up," Elias ordered. "We're going in." Their shuttle docked with the strange ship. As the doors opened, a cold mist crept inside. The air was heavy, still, and smelled faintly of metal and something sweet. The walls pulsed gently, like they were breathing. "Keep your helmets on," Elias said. The crew moved carefully through the narrow corridors, guided by flickering lights and an odd humming sound. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. They passed empty chambers. Some looked like control rooms, others like storage. But all were abandoned. Then they found it. At the end of a long corridor stood a circular room. In its center was a tall glass pod filled with a glowing blue liquid. Inside floated a woman, pale skin, long dark hair drifting like ink, and a strange metallic suit that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes were closed, and her arms were folded. Across her chest, "Is she alive?" Lyra whispered. "Yes," Kalen replied. "Barely. Her life signs are weak, but stable." Elias stared at her face. She looked human, but not quite. Her features were too perfect, her skin too smooth, and yet something about her felt sad. "Bring the pod to the ship," Elias said. "Sir, we don't even know what she is," Kalen warned. Elias nodded. "I know, but we can't leave her here too." Die. Back on the Resolute, the pod was placed in the medbay. Dr. Hera, the ship's medic, ran scans, but couldn't make sense of the alien tech. "This isn't like any stasis system I've seen," she said. "But it's keeping her alive." That night, Elias stayed in the medbay, staring at the pod. He didn't know why he felt so drawn to this strange being. Maybe it was the way she looked so peaceful. Or maybe it was the silent question that hung in the air. "Who is she?"
"Out warning,"
the pod hissed. Elias jumped up as the liquid inside began to drain.
"Light."
Lights on the pod flashed rapidly.
"What?"
The glass door slowly opened with a soft click. Cold mist poured out, and the woman's body gently dropped forward right into Elias's arms. Her eyes opened. They were silver, not gray silver, bright and sharp like metal under sunlight. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came. Elias helped her sit down on the floor. "Easy, you're safe." She looked at him for a long time, then whispered in a voice like wind through glass, "Forgive me, human." Before Elias could ask what she meant, she fell forward unconscious. The next day was tense. The woman was placed in a recovery bed. Vitals were stable, but she hadn't woken up. Dr. Hera was frustrated. "It's like her body's here, but her mind is somewhere else." Stranger things started happening. The ship's blood storage, used for medical emergencies, had gone missing. Every drop. "That's not a coincidence," Lyra said, looking uneasy. "You think she'll know," Elias said firmly. "We don't know that." "But what if she needs it?" Kalen said. "That's not normal, Captain." Before they could argue more, the ship's lights flickered. A soft humming filled the air. "Power fluctuation?" Elias asked. "No, it's coming from outside our systems," said Lyra, almost like singing. They checked the cameras. She was awake. The alien woman stood at the far end of the medbay, eyes glowing faintly. The shadows around her twisted like water. Then, as if sensing the cameras, she looked straight into them and vanished. Security lockdowns were triggered. Every crew member was ordered to stay in groups. But the woman didn't attack. Instead, strange things happened. Doors opened without being touched. Lights flickered when she passed. Tools and electronics reacted to her presence, some sparked. Others stopped working altogether. She appeared again, this time in the engine room. Elias confronted her alone. She stood beside the ship's core, her long hair drifting as if underwater. "You're not human," Elias said softly. "What are you?" She looked at him with sad eyes. "I am Savath Ara," she said. "The last of the Velkarin." Elias stepped closer. "Why did you say forgive me?" She closed her eyes. "Because I took from your ship. I fed. I didn't want to, but I must survive. I must. ... Warn you. Warn me. About what?" She looked into his eyes and whispered, "The unlight is coming." Then she faded literally into the air, leaving Elias standing alone. The crew gathered later, shaken. Elias told them what she said. Some wanted to report to Earth Command immediately. Others feared what she might do next. Elias only felt one thing, a deep growing question in his heart. Was she a threat, or humanity's last hope? Captain Elias Rayner couldn't sleep. He sat in the dark of his cabin, staring at the ceiling, remembering her voice calm. Sad and strange. The unlight is coming? What did it mean? Who or what was the unlight? He rose, stepped to the small window, and looked out into space. Epsilon Eridani glowed far away, a bright dot in the sea of stars. The Resolute floated in silence, but Elias could feel something shifting, something cold and invisible. He left his room and walked quietly toward the medbay. When he got there, it was empty. Savatha was gone again. The next day, strange things happened on the ship. 2 crew members fainted in the mess hall. They were weak, dizzy, and had pale skin. The medical scanner showed a strange drop in their red blood cell count. But there were no wounds, no cuts, no signs of injury. Dr. Hera looked worried. Something is draining them from the inside. But it's impossible. Elias didn't speak. He already had a guess. He found her again in the observation deck. Savathara stood with her back to him, watching the stars. Her long black hair moved slowly, though there was no wind. The air around her shimmered like heat waves. "You fed on them," Elias said quietly. She didn't turn. "Yes. Why?" he asked. "You said you didn't want to?" "I do." "Not but I must," she replied. "My kind does not live as yours does. We are bound to energy, to life. Without it, I fade." Elias stepped closer. "Why not just ask?" She turned to him now. Her eyes looked dimmer than before, almost tired. "Because your kind would fear me, hate me," I don't, Elias said. She studied him, as if surprised. "Then you are different." There was silence for a moment. Then she said, "Do you know what sleeps between the stars, Captain Rayner?" Elias shook his head. No. She looked back at the black sky, the unlight. "A hunger that devours suns, minds, and time. My people kept it trapped once. We paid a price. Most of us died. But the cage is breaking. I am the last who remembers how to hold it back." Elias frowned. "So you came here? To warn us?" She nodded. "I followed the signal of your world. I hoped your kind had strength. Hope. Maybe... ... even light." He sat on the bench nearby. "Why not just tell us everything?" "Because your leaders would never believe me," she said. "They would cage me, study me, destroy what little I have left." "You're not wrong," Elias admitted. "But I believe you." Later that day, Elias gathered his senior crew. Some were angry. "She's feeding on us," Kalen said. "That's not a guest. That's a threat." "She hasn't killed anyone," Dr. Hera argued. "And she seems honest. She's hiding things," Lyra added. "That's dangerous." Elias raised a hand. "I've spoken to her. She's not here to hurt us. She's here because something worse is coming." Lyra frowned. "Worse than her draining our crew?" "Yes," Elias said. "Something she calls the unlight. And I believe she's telling the truth." Kalen stood. "Then what do we do?" "Let her feed on us every few days?" "I don't know," Elias said. "We find another way." That night, Elias met Savathera again. She stood in the cargo bay, eyes closed, hands glowing faintly. "I'm sorry," she said before he could speak. "For those I touched, I took less than I needed." "Well, find you help," Elias said. "Maybe there's a substitute. Some energy source." She shook her head. "My kind's energy is bound to life. To memory. ... to emotion." Elias thought for a moment. "So it's not blood you need. It's something deeper." "Yes. Your blood carries memory, feeling, pain. That is what feeds me." He didn't flinch. "Then take what you need." "From me?" She looked shocked. "Why would you offer?" "Because if you're telling the truth, we may not survive what's coming without your help." She stepped forward hesitantly. Her fingers touched his temple. No fangs, no wounds, just light. In an instant, Elias felt something strange. He saw his own memories, his childhood on Mars, his first ship, the face of his lost brother. All of it flickered like fire through Savathara's hands. Then it was over. She pulled back, breathing slowly. Her eyes glowed brighter again. "I took very little," she said, "but enough to remember who you are." The next day, the ship's AI detected something strange, an object moving toward them at high speed. It wasn't human-made. It was a shard of dark crystal, sharp and silent. Floating through space like a knife, Savathara stared at the screen and whispered, "It has found me." "What is that?" Elias asked. "A hunter of the unlight. It destroys anything that remembers my people." The shard hit their shields and sent a shock through the ship. Lights flickered. Gravity failed for a few seconds. Savathara stood. "Tall, I must leave." Elias grabbed her arm. "No, you said we're strong. We fight." She looked at him, surprised. "Then I will stay." They worked together. Savathara guided the crew in tuning their shields with alien frequencies. The ship began to glow faintly with patterns similar to hers. It was risky, but it worked. When the second shard arrived, they were ready. A focused beam of energy based on Savath, Arizona destroyed it. The crew cheered. For the first time, Savathara smiled. That night, she sat with Elias in the observation deck. "You were right," she said. "Your kind is more than I hoped." Elias looked at the stars. "We're stubborn, sometimes foolish, but we don't run from danger. That may be what saves the galaxy." He turned to her. "What happens next?" Her silver eyes looked deeper than space. "We find Iliasnine, the last Velkyran gate world. If it still sleeps, we wake it. If it's dead, we make it live again." Elias stood. "Then let's set course." She smiled again, softly. "Forgive me, human, for what I've taken." He nodded. "You gave more than you took." Together, they walked toward the bridge toward a war that had already begun between the stars. The stars shifted slowly as the Resolute moved toward ILIOS-9. It was a quiet journey. Tense, but calm. The crew was still unsure about their alien guest, Savathara. Some were afraid of her. Others were simply confused. But one thing was clear. She had saved them from the black shard that tried to destroy their ship. No one could ignore that. Captain Elias Rayner sat alone in his quarters reviewing old star charts. Ilias-9 wasn't on most maps. It was marked as a dead planet, forgotten and cold. According to Savathara, it was once a gate world. Of the Velkyran, her ancient race, a place of memory, of power. And maybe answers. There was a knock. "Come in," Elias said. Savathara entered quietly. Her presence always brought a strange calm. She didn't walk like a human more. Like she was floating. Her silver eyes held stories that went far beyond time. "We are 2 hours from Ilias-9, she said softly. Elias nodded. "Are you ready?" She looked down. "I don't know. I've not seen my home in over 5,000 of your years." "Well, it still be there?" he asked. "I don't know," she said again. "But we must find out. If anything remains, it will be under the surface. The truth lies deep, where the old light still burns." When the Resolute arrived, the crew saw a dark, silent world. Ilyasnine hung in space like a ghost. Its surface was covered in ice, its sky dim, and its atmosphere thin. But the scanners showed strange heat signals coming from below the crust. Like something was still alive under the ground. Elias and a small team, including Savath Ura, landed on the surface. The air was thin, but breathable. The ground cracked beneath their boots as they walked. Mountains of black stone stretched toward a gray sky. In the distance, they saw something rise out of the Isa Tower, tall, silent, and glowing faintly with silver lines. Savathar stopped. This is it, the Vault of Sarai, my kind's last memory. They entered the tower carefully. The inside was warmer. The walls were smooth and made of a silver-black metal that reflected their shapes. As they walked, lights lit up beneath their feet. Savathara touched the walls gently with her fingers. They glowed brighter. "This place is alive," Elias asked. "In a way," she said, "it remembers." As they moved deeper, strange images floated into the air, holograms from long ago. They showed tall, glowing beings like Savath Ara, Velkarin. They flew through stars, healed planets, and fought creatures made of shadows. One image showed a massive battle. A swarm of black shapes rising from a crack in space, the unlicked Savath watched silently. "That was the beginning," she said. "We thought we could destroy it. We were wrong. We locked it away. But the seal is breaking." Elias turned to her. "Why you? Why are you the last?" She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, "Because I was the one who stayed behind. All others chose peace or death. I chose to remember." In the heart of the tower was a glowing orb, floating above a stone platform. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "This is the memory core," Savathera said. "It holds what we were. If I connect to it, I will remember everything." "Is that dangerous?" Elias asked. "Yes," she whispered. "It could burn me from within or awaken what should stay asleep." "Then why do it?" he asked. She looked at him. "Because your world has a chance to survive, you need to know how to fight the unlight. I must show you how." Elias nodded. "Then we'll protect you, whatever happens." She stepped into the circle. The orb glowed brighter. Then streams of light shot out, connecting to her hands, her chest, her head. She screamed not in pain, but in memory. Images flashed everywhere. The Valkyran homeworld, full of light and music. A child, her child, laughing under twin moons. The fall, the unlight breaking through the sky. The last battle. And finally, her own body placed in stasis. Alone, waiting for someone to find her. The light faded. She collapsed. Elias rushed to her side. Her body was cold, but her eyes slowly opened. "I remember," she whispered. "I remember it all." Back on the Resolute, Savathara shared what she had learned. The unlight was not just a creature. It was a force, something that grew. In forgotten places, where light had faded, it fed on fear, hate, and silence. It had no shape, but it used shadows to move. It could not be killed, but it could be contained. The key was memory. Stories, hope, connection. That was why the Velkarin had survived as long as they did. They shared everything through the memory cores. They didn't forget. They passed on every feeling, every lesson. The unlight thrived when people gave up. "When your people forget who they are," Savathara said, "that's when it grows strongest." Elias understood. "So we fight it."
Yes.
"By remembering. By holding on to our truth," she said. That night, Elias stood in the observation deck again, watching the stars. Savathera joined him. "You gave a lot to help us," he said. She smiled faintly. "You reminded me who I was." Elias turned to her. "Do you still need to feed?" She nodded. "Yes, but I can take less now. Memory feeds me more than blood ever did." He nodded. "Then stay with us. Help us prepare Earth. Help us fight back." She looked at him with soft eyes. "I will, as long as I can." Far away, in the darkness between systems, something stirred. Hey. Shape without a face, sound without a voice. It had felt her touch the memory core. It had tasted her fear, and now it was moving. Captain Elias Rayner stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars. The ship had left Ilias 9 behind, but something still followed them. He could feel it, like a whisper in his ear. A cold breath on the back of his neck, Savath Era stood beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the empty black ahead. "It has awakened," she said softly. "The Unlight knows we touched the core. It will not stay silent now." The crew worked quietly around them. Ever since Ilias 9, they had become more serious, more focused. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. This was bigger than a simple mission. It was a warning to all life. "Can it follow us?" Elias asked. Savathara nodded. "Not in the way you think. It doesn't use engines or ships. It moves through fear, through silence, through weak minds. So it can infect us." He asked. She looked at him. Carefully, yes, but not like a disease. More like a shadow that grows if you look away. Strange things began to happen on the ship. First, the lights flickered more often. Then crew members started hearing voices, whispers in languages no one recognized. Dr. Hera reported that some people were forgetting simple things, like where they were born or the names of loved ones. "It's not normal," she said. "Like their memories are fading, being stolen." Elias called for an emergency meeting. "I want the entire crew monitored," he ordered. "If anyone hears or sees anything strange, report it immediately." He turned to Savath Era. "Is this the Unlight's doing?" She answered. "It begins with confusion, then fear, then silence. Once someone loses who they are, the Unlight enters." "Can we stop it?" Lyra asked. "There is one way, Savath," Era said. "We must remind each other of who we are. Speak names, tell stories, share memory." Kalen, one of the more skeptical officers, scoffed. "That sounds like fairy tale stuff." "No," Savathara said, staring straight at him. "That's how my people survived for so long. We fought with memory. That's why I still exist." The captain gave the order. Every crew member was to carry a memory journal, a small, digital file where they would record stories from their lives. Happy moments, sad ones, names of people they loved. And every day during meals, a few would stand up and read from their journals at first. It felt strange, but slowly something changed. The voices faded, the lights stopped flickering, and people smiled. Again, just a little, Elias watched his crew. Growing stronger, the Unlight was still out there, but they were pushing it back. One night, Savath Ara asked Elias to meet her in the cargo bay. He arrived to find her sitting in the dark, looking at a hologram of a child. "Your daughter?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said. "Her name was Sarai. She was kind, curious, like your people." "She didn't survive the war?" he asked gently. Savath Era shook her head. "No. The Unlight took her dreams first, then her voice, then her eyes. I held her until she faded." Elias didn't know what to say, but he sat beside her. In silence, "I keep her memory here," she said, pointing to her chest. "So she lives. Even now," he looked at her, "will help you fight. Earth will help." Savathara smiled sadly. "Your people must remember who they are. If they forget even for a moment, the Unlight will win." The Resolute was halfway home when it happened. A crew member, Lieutenant Bren, vanished from his room. No alarm. No sound, just gone. His memory journal was empty. Elias searched everywhere. Then, in one of the unused storage rooms, they found something written on the wall. "Who am I?" Savathara touched the writing and closed her eyes. "Tuck." "Him. Is he alive?" Elias asked. "No. He is part of it now," she said softly. "But his story can still be told. That weakens the Unlight." So they gathered, and they told stories about Bren. How he loved old music, how he used to sing off-key in the showers, how he cried when he saw Earth from orbit for the first time. As they spoke, the writing on the wall faded, and so did the cold feeling that had settled over the ship. Soon after they reached the edge of the solar system, Earth was near. Hope returned, but so did something else. In the distance, between Mars and Jupiter, space itself looked broken, a black rift, silent, wide. UNMOV. Sensors couldn't measure it, no. Light escaped from it. Savathera stared at it in horror. "It's a gate," she said, "a wound left by the unlight. It's trying to enter your world." Elias stepped closer to the screen. "Can we close it?" "We must," she said. "But it won't be easy. We'll need more than memory. We'll need unity." He nodded. "Then we warn Earth. We prepare. Fight together." In the following days, Savathara taught the crew how to build memory fields devices that amplified thoughts, dreams, and emotions. They placed them all over the ship and even sent some toward Earth. The fields made the unlight weaker in their presence, but it was still coming. Elias and Savathera stood one last time in the observation deck. "You came here thinking we would fear you," Elias said, "but you gave us more than a warning. You gave us a chance." She smiled. "You gave me something I thought I lost. Hope. Are we ready for what's next?" he asked. Her eyes glowed softly. "We'll see, but this time you won't face it alone." In the darkness, beyond the stars, the unlight stirred, but it found something strange waiting. Not silence, not fear, but names, stories. Light. It was not welcome anymore, and for the first time in a long age. It felt something new. Resistance. The Resolute hovered just beyond Earth's orbit. The crew stood ready. Memory fields were active across the ship, glowing with soft, warm light. Earth Command had finally received their message. Savathara's warning had been passed to every major station. Memory field technology was being shared quickly. People on Earth were told the truth. A shadow was coming. Not a monster with claws or teeth, but something worse. Forgetfulness, fear, silence, and Earth would have to fight it together. Captain Elias Rayner watched the stars from the command chair. His eyes were locked on the black rift still hanging near Jupiter. It hadn't moved, but it had grown wider. "Report," he said. Lieutenant Lyra answered. "Rift is still expanding. No known energy reading, but it's pulling matter inward. One of our probes disappeared," Kalen added. "We've also detected faint signals, like voices speaking in reverse." Savathara stepped forward. "The unlight is testing us. It's seeing how close it can get before we break." "Then we don't break," Elias said. "We stand. Together." The lower deck, the memory core Savathara had shared with the humans, was glowing brighter than ever. It had accepted Earth's stories, music, books, pictures, memories from billions of people. It was now the largest memory field in the galaxy. Savathara placed her hand on it. "We're almost ready, but the unlight won't wait much longer." Elias stood beside her. "What do we need to do?" She looked at him carefully. "You'll have to lead the memory wave. It's not just light. It's thought, emotion, spirit. You must share a memory so powerful, so true, that the unlight cannot twist it." "Why me?" Elias asked. "Because humans are still young," she said, "but you're brave. You feel strongly. You remember pain and joy. That gives you power." Elias nodded. "Then let's begin." The unlight made its move. It surged from the rift like smoke in space. It had no shape, but the stars around it vanished. It moved fast, heading for Earth. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. Unlight approaching fast, Lyra shouted. 6 minutes. "Activate full memory field," Elias ordered. "Prepare the wave." The crew scrambled into position. Each person stood by a transmitter. They began reading their journals out loud. One spoke of a lost dog that came home after 3 days. Another told the story of her grandmother teaching her how to cook rice. A young engineer sang a lullaby. His mother used to sing. Voices filled the ship. Savathara smiled. "Yes, this is the way." As the unlight neared, it slowed. It could feel something strange warmth, connection light. It tried to push into the ship's hull, but the memory field burned it back. It hissed with invisible rage. Inside the Resolute, Elias stood before the main transmitter. He closed his eyes. Then he spoke. "When I was a boy," he said, "I got lost in the woods behind my family's farm. It was dark. I was scared. I didn't know which way to go. I called for my father. He didn't come. I sat down and cried. The ship went quiet. All listened. Then I heard singing, my mother's voice. I followed it. She wasn't there, but I remembered her voice clearly. It gave me strength. I stood up and walked toward it." Elias took a breath. That memory saved me. Her voice became my guide. Even when she died, I still hear it when I need strength. That's the power of memory. Of love. The memory wave pulsed outward. It wasn't just energy, it was story. Emotion. Truth. It hit the unlight like a rising sun, and for the first time, the shadow screamed. Not with sound, but with confusion. It didn't understand these feelings. Hope, laughter, grief, love. It tried to twist them, but they held strong. And then, the unlight began to shrink. Across Earth, memory fields activated. In homes, families. Told stories in schools. Children drew pictures of people they loved on stations. Officers played recordings of songs from Earth. The world remembered itself, and the shadow lost its grip. Scifi closed her eyes and placed her hands on the ship's core. She began to sing in the Velcrin tongue. It was a soft, ancient song filled with sorrow and joy. It was the last song her people ever wrote, as her voice echoed through the Resolute. The memory field doubled in strength. The unlight tried one last time to push through, but the field held. And then, the rift cracked. A line of silver light split it open. The unlight screamed again, and pulled back, and the rift began to close. Silence returned. Not the cold silence of fear, but the peaceful quiet of a battle won. Cheers erupted across the ship. People hugged. Some cried. The Earth was safe. For now, Elias looked at Scifi, looked tired but peaceful. "You did it," he said. "No," she said gently. "We did it together." He smiled. "What happens now?" She looked. "At the stars, the unlight is not fully gone. It never is. But now, your people know the way. They know how to resist. That changes everything." Elias nodded. "You'll stay with us?" "For a while," she said, "till the stars call me again." Later, Elias wrote in his own memory journal. She said, "Forgive me, human. When we first met, I thought it was because she had harmed me, but now I understand. She had carried the pain of her people for so long. She thought she was a curse, but she became our guide, and now her voice is part of our memory forever." Far away, in another corner of the galaxy, the unlight stirred again. But this time, it hesitated, because it remembered the warmth, and it feared the light of memory. The Resolute had returned to Earth's orbit, but the battle against the unlight had changed everything. Though the rift had closed, something still lingered in the hearts of those who had faced it. Not fear, but purpose. Captain Elias Rayner stood on the platform above Earth, looking down at the planet that now shimmered with memory fields. All major cities had them now shields of story and light. Schools taught children the power of memory. Libraries stored not just books, but voices, pictures, dreams. The world had survived, but not by fighting with weapons. By remembering Athara walked silently through a human garden on the orbital station. It was late evening, and Earth's blue curve glowed behind her. She moved slowly, fingers brushing over the leaves. Elias found her there. "You haven't said much since the battle," he said gently. "I am thinking," she replied, "and remembering." He sat beside her on the bench. "I was alone. For so long," she continued, "wandering dark space, hiding from the unlight, feeding only when I had to, watching stars die. I never thought I would see a world fight back with songs and childhood stories. She looked at Elias. You humans are strange, but you shine brighter than I imagined. Down on Earth, people were changing too. A 10-year-old girl named Asha in Nairobi had started a project to collect bedtime stories from every country. A group of old friends in Brazil gathered each week to tell each other their best memories and recorded them for future generations. In India, a radio channel called Voices of Light played nothing but spoken memories 24 hours a day of laughter. Poems, dreams, and love. It wasn't a government plan. It was a human one. They remembered what the resolute crew had shown them. They had made memory their weapon, but not all was at peace. One night, Elias received a signal, a message from deep space. It wasn't from Earth, not even from this galaxy. It was a call for help. The message was weak, filled with static, but a few words broke through. They forgot. We need memory. Send. Light Savath, Era listened to the message. Her face went still. That's Valkyrin, she whispered. Elias looked at her. Your people, she nodded. Or what's left of them. She turned to him. If this is real, they're still out there, and the Unlight is still hunting them. The Council of Earth met to decide what to do. Some said it was too far, too dangerous. Others believed it. Was their duty to help? Elias stood and spoke. The Valkyrin gave us the tools to fight. Savathara gave us warning, wisdom, and hope. Now her people need us. He looked around the room. Will we forget them? Or will we remember what they did for us? Silence, then slowly, people began to stand, one by one, until the entire council was on its feet. Earth would answer the call. The Resolute was prepared for deep space again. This time, they weren't alone. A second ship, Aurora's Echo, would go with them, carrying memory engineers, historians, and light transmitters powered by human dreams. Together, they would carry Earth's stories to the edge of known space. The journey would take months, but the crew was ready. Elias stood on the bridge once more. Savathara joined him, her cloak darker than ever, but her eyes filled with soft light. Are you sure? He asked. This could be dangerous. She nodded. I was born among stars. I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Days passed in silence, then weeks. The two ships moved beyond familiar charts. Into the unknown, they passed dying suns and empty planets. But, at last, they found the source of the message. A broken moon, orbiting a dim star. And on that, moon dashed shadows, not just darkness, but the unlicked. The landing team prepared carefully. They wore memory shields and carried sound projectors. Each projector played a unique recording, a baby's laugh, love song, an old joke, sounds of life. They stepped onto the cracked ground, and the shadows stirred. Shapes moved in the dark, thin, silent, cold, but they did not attack. They watched. Savathara closed her eyes. They remember something, she whispered, but not enough. She walked forward, unafraid. I am Sarvathara of the Valkyrin, she said loudly. I carry memory. I carry light. She played a recording from her wrist, a lullaby, the same one she had sung on the Resolute. The air shifted. The shadows paused, then. One of them stepped forward. Its form flickered half-light, half-dark. It spoke in a voice like wind. ... Serai. Savathara froze. That was my daughter's name. The figure moved closer. Its face was not fully formed, but it remembered. Something a piece of who it had once been. The crew worked quickly. They set up a large memory beacon. It pulsed with stories. Collected from Earth and beyond, the shadows began to slow. To listen, and then to speak. A miracle happened. The Valkyrin survivors, long lost to the Unlight, began to awaken. They were not whole, not yet, but the stories helped them remember who they were, what they loved, what they lost, and slowly, Their forms became more solid, more real. The unlight began to fade from the moon. It wasn't destroyed, but it was pushed back again. Elias stood beside Savathara as the first Velkarin child walked into the light. The child looked up and asked, "Are we safe now?" Savathara knelt and touched the child's forehead. "No," she said softly, "but we are no longer alone." The ships prepared to return to Earth. They carried more than survivors. They carried proof that memory could heal, that light could return, that even in the darkest corners of the stars there was still hope, and always the light that remains. The Resolute and Aurora's Echo returned to Earth after months in deep space. The mission had been a success. The Velkarin were saved, some broken, some silent, but slowly healing. They remembered their names, their families, their skies. Earth had not just sent ships, it had sent light, and for the first time in a long age, the stars had begun to whisper. Stories again. Captain Elias Rayner stood at the front of the council hall in New Geneva. The world was watching. Next to him stood Savathara, no longer a lonely traveler. She was now a bridge between two species, guardian of memory. The crowd was silent. Elias spoke. "We were afraid once, afraid of the dark, afraid of the unknown. But Savathara came to us not with war but with a warning. We listened." He looked at her, and because we did, Earth stands today. Stronger, brighter, united. The hall erupted in quiet applause, full of feeling. Then Savathara stepped forward. Her voice, though soft, filled the room. "I was once a shadow among stars," she said. "My people were almost lost, eaten by the unlight. But one memory saved me of my daughter's laughter. It was small, but it stayed." She paused, and then I met you, humans. Strange, wild, so full of emotion, so full of stories. She smiled gently. "You showed me that memory is not a weakness. It is a light that cannot die." The next day, a special building was opened. It was called the Vault of Echoes. Inside it were not weapons, not machines, but stories. Spoken, written, sung from humans. From Valkyran, from other allies now coming forward from across the stars. Each visitor could sit in silence and listen. One recording, just one, played every hour. "Forgive me," human said Savath. Ara's voice. "I was afraid. I forgot how to hope, but your light reminded me." The world changed. Children were taught to share stories, not hide them. Old songs were played again in public squares. Grandparents spoke into memory stones, telling tales of younger days, and in quiet rooms across the planet, people who once felt forgotten felt heard. They were part of the light now, but all things moved forward. One quiet morning, Savathara stood on a hill near a forest. Birds sang. The sky was soft and gold. Elias stood beside her. "You're leaving, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded. "My people need me. The Velkarin will rebuild, and there are other places still touched by the unlight." He looked down. "See you again?" She gently touched his arm. "You don't need to see me. You'll feel me every time you remember something good. Something real." She stepped back and activated a small beacon. A soft hum rose in the air. Her ship shimmered into view. Elias held out something, an old book, leather-bound. "What's this?" she asked. He smiled. "A story, yours and ours. I wrote it." She took it carefully, holding it to her chest. "I'll keep it close," she whispered. "Always." The ship rose into the sky, turning toward the stars. Savathara looked down one last time at the planet that had changed her. She didn't cry, but her heart, once quiet, now hummed with memories. A laugh, a song, a child's question, and a human voice that said, "You are not alone." Years passed. The Vault of Echoes became a place of peace. The Resolute was retired and placed in orbit as a museum of memory. Elias grew older, but he continued to write stories, thoughts, memories. One night, under a tree, a young girl found him writing in his old journal. "What are you writing, Captain?" she asked. He smiled. "The last story." She sat beside him, Can I hear? It. He nodded and began to read. There once was a shadow in the stars. It had teeth of silence and eyes, made of fear. It wanted to forget everything, but it found something it could not erase. A voice. A song. A story. A woman who had seen death, but chose to remember life, and a planet that chose to listen. The shadow fled, not because it was weak, because the light was stronger than it thought, and that light was not fire, but love, memory, truth. The last story is not about ending the dark. It's about remembering the light. The little girl looked up, eyes wide. Is that a true story? Elias closed the journal, smiling. Yes, and now. Oh, it's your story too. She thought for a moment. I'm going to tell it to my friends. Good, Leah said, resting. Back under the tree. That's how the light stays alive. Far away, among stars unknown to Earth, a figure stood on a quiet moon. Savatha Ray looked up, holding the leather-bound book close. She read a line from it, smiled, and whispered, softly, "Forgive me, human, for forgetting hope, but thank you for helping me remember." The end.